Recording in progress. Welcome to the future. I'm Steve Sammartino and introducing the great OG of podcasting, Mr. Cameron Reilly.
Turning me on, Steve. Slow down. Don't turn me on until later in the show. Welcome to the Futuristic episode 34. We're recording this 20th of December, 2024. How are you, my little buddy?
I'm good. I'm great. It's big. It's been a big year, Cameron.
It has been a big year, Stephen. I suggested to you last week that we don't do a show last week because OpenAI started doing this thing called the 12 Days of OpenAI, where every work day for the last 11 days, they have done a live stream where they've launched a new thing, a new feature, a new function of ChatGPT. And there's one more day to go. And I said, let's wait till next week because there's probably something big that's going to come up. And as it turns out, like Friday US time, which will be tomorrow our time, they'll do day 12 and hopefully that's going to be the biggest thing. And we've sort of missed the chance to do that. But even the last 11 days have been insane. Like there's been so much come out in the last 11 days of the year. And while they're coming out with stuff, Google have been coming out with stuff to one up them on their stuff that they've come out with. So it's just been this crazy period of leapfrogging going on in the last couple of weeks. But it has been a crazy year. And your idea for the show this year is for us to do like our top things of the year and our predictions for next year. Is that what you want to do?
That's right. So I was thinking the top three from this year, there's zillions, but we've got to try and at least squeeze it into an hour or so. And top five each for next year. And interestingly, if I think of some of mine, there's a bit of overlap, but I'm going to try and keep them separate. I just did my tech and AI trends for 2025 and did 20. It could have been 100 long. There is some overlap, but that's what I think we do.
Okay. Well, why don't you kick it off with your top three things from 2024?
Okay, so my first one is AI recursion. And it's not a thing, but I think it's kind of like a zeitgeist or an event. Never, ever have I seen things get so much better so quickly. Like the iterative improvements and features that are coming in. And I think OpenAI it's been extraordinary. The amount of new things that they've had this year, just from the LLM itself getting better computation, ability to do maths and not just language stuff, uh, imagery, video, Sora, uh, live video feed on what you're looking at, web integration, which has been huge as well. So just the recursion happening so quickly, and it's even blowing my mind. And we know that change is exponential, but it feels like we've finally hit the exponential part of the exponential, if that makes sense. The doubling and the recursion is
Yeah.
just quick. Let's just think about it. Apple do annual events and things didn't change that quick, but in the kind of 24 months they've been on in the zeitgeist, it's like you say, it's every other month there's something and it's getting quicker. And you just mentioned their 12 days of open AI. Like that has
Yeah.
never happened in tech.
No. Look, yeah, I think you're right. Recursion is crazy, and this is the sort of stuff that Kurzweil has been predicting for decades. That when you get to the part of the asymptotic part of the exponential curve, that things just go insane, and
Yeah,
it
it's
fits.
incomprehensible speed.
Yeah,
And the recursion itself, and I imagine that this is part of it, is that the tool itself is inventing new parts of the tool. Like it seems that that's pretty clear. And I don't think
yeah.
we've really been there yet. I think this is the first time because we've
Mm.
got code that understands code and can self-improve. I think we're actually hitting the technology self-improvement element of that exponential. And I think that's why everything is so radical right now. So for me, that was my number one thing this year that blew my mind. Uh, yeah, iterative pace on steroids. That was my number one. My number two,
And
all right, keep going. I'll come back to two.
well, I was just going to say it's not just like software, building software, but the ability for people increasingly just to have an idea and then develop it within a week. I saw I think it was yesterday's 12 Days of OpenAI thing. They launched 1-800 ChatGPT, which is where you can
I don't
call.
know what it is, but I love it already because I just love a retro. I hope they've got a truck that drives down highways with that written on the side. That I hope that
I'm
so
sure they
much.
do. They had it flashing up on the screen while they were doing the live stream in like this really cheesy late
Bomber.
night infomercial font. It was
Oh,
fantastic.
so good.
But if you're in the US, you can call 1-800 ChatGPT and just talk to the AI and ask it questions. If you're outside of the US, you can use WhatsApp to call it. And they were saying it's if you don't have internet connectivity, but you need to talk to ChatGPT and you have telephone connectivity, you can do it in the US. I'm pretty sure, I don't know about, I've never used WhatsApp that much, but I'm pretty sure internet, you need data to use WhatsApp,
You
right?
need
You
data.
can't
You
just
don't
use
need.
it over a telephone signal,
Yeah, yeah, data is
right?
what you.
So sort of defeats the purpose. But one of the demos that they did is one of the guys used a rotary phone to call ChatGPT. And he said, I don't think I've ever used a rotary phone before in my life. So this is an experience on multiple levels. But I was talking to, I was explaining this to Chrissy later on last night, and I was saying, like, try and explain that to somebody 10 years ago, 15 years ago. The idea, we were talking about how we remember when the height of cool was to call the time service on your phone. I remember in the early 90s, I would do that because it was cool. At the tone, the time will be 12:05 and 15 seconds. Beep, beep, beep. And you could call and get your horoscope read out. Now
Yes.
we go, oh yeah, you can just make a phone call and it's for free. You can do it for free. I think they're allowing like you don't even have to have a GPT account or anything like that. Like 15 minutes a month or something free phone calls you can make to GPT from your number. Um, you make a phone call and have a conversation with an artificial intelligence that'll answer. One of the demos they did is a guy said, ChatGPT, my friends and I are on a road trip. We're in the middle of nowhere on this highway in California. We see these houses. They're like weird, round, colored houses. Any idea what they would be? And they go, oh, that's the famous Flintstone houses that were built and they're a tourist thing and blah, 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 blah. So just to be able to call AI wherever you are and
But
ask a
calling
question.
AI on traditional networks,
Yeah,
so not really
from the
using
telephone.
data. So you're kind of not using data,
No, you're using a telephone line to call it
which
and
is
it's
still data,
talking to you.
by the way.
And
Which is still data, which I
well,
love. That was one of their
yes,
greatest hacks. These are phone
sure.
calls and these are data. It's like, yeah, they're all ones and zeros flying through the sky, you liars. I just want to point
Yeah.
that out. I always knew, and I wasn't falling for
Yeah.
it, kids.
Everything is ones and zeros. But the point I was going to make about all of this was they said that this idea came up in a OpenAI hackathon and the team developed it in like a week to go live with. And this is getting back to the recursion stuff that you're talking about. To have the tools available now to go, oh, I want to build this thing. And I've talked about this on the show because I do this all the time now. Oh, I've got this idea for a thing, an app I can build that'll solve a problem of mine. And an hour later, I can have it built. Like that is the era we are now entering into where billions of people can build things in an hour or a day or a week that didn't exist before because they have an idea. And we're not quite at the stage, but we're not far from the stage where you can just say to the app, hey, build it for me, and it'll do it lock, stock, and barrel. It's pretty close to that,
I do that now
but
all
not
the time.
100%.
All the time. I was asking it to do something yesterday, which was I had a whole bunch of business cards that I wanted to extract all of the emails from because all of these people, when they get business card, I say, "Do you want me to
Sit
put you on?"
closer to your mic, Steve. You're
Sorry.
sounding like you're in the next room.
Okay, so I collect a lot of business cards at events. And when I take the business cards off the person, I say, "Do you mind if I put you on my email list?" I do a weekly tech thing. They go, "Oh, yeah, cool, no worries." So I get their permission. And I normally would just type it into my Substack. But I went on to OpenAI took a photo of it, put it in, and said extract the emails. But it struggled with some of the fonts and the so it told me why it was struggling with its observational metrics. And I said, what would fix it? And it said, you would need this. And it gave recommendations of the software that use it. I said, do you know how that software works? And it says, yes. I said, could you build it? And it said, yes. And then it built it and I put it on my client and it worked.
That's
So,
great, isn't it?
so,
Just
so
build it
one of
for
the
me.
things that I'm doing now, often it'll recommend a piece of software AI that can do the task that it can't do. I ask it
Yeah.
to do and research it, even provide the link and go look in that. What does it do? What is its core functions? Now write the code, and it'll write some code in Python, and then I download it on my client and I do it there. So it can kind of already do it. At the moment, it needs us to tell it. Soon it won't. It'll go, wait a minute, let me write some code to be able to do that thing. So, and I don't think everyone has realized the power in our hands now is insane.
Mm,
It's insane.
mm,
I just every day
mm,
I'm agog. I'm like, holy
mm.
wow.
Gog and Magog.
My God. So, okay, number two for
You were
me.
there. You did a video from that alley recently where Gog and Magog are, right?
Maybe. Did I?
You did a TikTok in the little laneway in Melbourne where Coco Black is, and
Yes.
there's the clock with
Yes, I did do one there. I did do that. I did.
the
Gog and Magog.
two
I did do one.
ogres that are defending the
Yes.
clock. They're Gog and Magog.
Okay. I did do that. I didn't know they were called that. You've taught me something in my own city. If you want to
There you
know
go.
more about the city you live in, just ask a tourist because they've been to all the places you never got round to.
Dude, I lived there for 20 years and
I know that. I know. I'm not calling you a tourist, but I'm
I
just,
used to, I did a podcast 20 years ago where I had a local Melbourne tour guide and we would go around and do tours of Melbourne and record the tour so other people could listen to it as a podcast. I did it for the City of Melbourne or Tourism Victoria or something.
all right, we're going to be here till 4 a.m., which I love, which I love.
Sorry, keep going. Your top
Number
three
two for
things.
me.
What was number
Yeah.
two?
My number two from this year was humanoid robots. That surprised me a little bit. It shouldn't have in hindsight. But what I love here is the marrying up of robotics, which have been around since post World War II, making cars, manufacturing. I love the humanoid element, and I love that it's the installation of LLMs that make them functional and trainable with verbal and visual reasoning. And we've spoken about it on the show before. Within a decade, we'll all have them. For me, what they can do now is kind of like here's a computer 1976 and it's really going to change stuff. It's like a huge, huge moment for everyone. And I think it's going to be maybe even bigger than the Henry Ford Revolution, where you've just got this incredible device with incredible power that just changes your life, your home, your everything, every workplace. That one there was huge, and it's a little bit like what happened with the car. We had carriages for a really long time, and then once we had fossil fuels in the internal combustion engine, that we put those two together and we changed everything. It's kind of like that with software and hardware on this. It's a marrying of the two. And I think it's
Mm.
extraordinary. OpenAI and NVIDIA, I mean, two of the heroes at the moment coming together with the figure one, super impressive.
And I mentioned to you off air that last night, NVIDIA Jensen Huang did a launch of a new piece of technology they have. It's called the Jetson Orin Nano Super. And it's basically a CPU or GPU that's basically the size of an iPhone. It is designed to run an LLM on device on a robot or an edge device, something on a mine, something in a factory, something in your house, that can run a fully functional LLM locally on the device without having to go off to the cloud. And they're selling it for $249
Yeah.
US. And it does 67 tops, 67 trillion operations per second. Now, um, I did an analysis of that last night with against my Pentium 400 that I had in 1995, just as for shits and giggles, and it's basically, and that would have cost me 2.5, 3 grand, I think, back in the day. This Jetson device would be about 167 million times as powerful as the Pentium 400 that I had in 1995, nearly 30 years ago,
And 10% of the
for a
price.
tenth of the price. And it's specifically designed to run all of NVIDIA's AI platform, the CUDA stuff. Um, just
Incomprehensible.
mind-boggling
You can't even
stuff.
get those numbers in your head. And I think I said to you as well, when we hear 167 million times, we just think 167. Yeah, you almost don't even comprehend it. It's incomprehensible.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Number three for me was, and this one's kind of got a sense of irony about it, because Google's been called a monopolist, but I'm calling it the post-search society because Google has cancer. Certainly, their search division does. I saw some numbers which astounded me, which Google isn't really publishing and it's hard to find. But up to 80% of heavy internet users are now using GPTs instead of search, an 80% substitution ratio. 80% of
That
now
can't be
what they
right.
didn't say, no, it is of high volume internet users are using GPTs and LLMs 80% of the time when they would historically before them be using search. And
That
I fit in
sounds
that. I
wrong.
reckon I'm 90%. Yeah, no, high frequency internet users. So I don't know what
One
that
of the
cohort
things that
is. I don't know what that cohort is. It could be 5% of super users. But look, I know this for sure, and let's just get anecdotal about it. How many things, how many times a day would you now go to the LLM instead of Google? What percentage? Is it 10? Is it
100,
20? Is it 50?
100%.
Well, when you started,
100%.
you said that's hard to believe. And then now you say, I'm not saying search is doing,
No.
it, I'm saying heavy internet users.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I
Well, people
reckon
like,
80, 90% of the people just don't realize how powerful this is and they're just not really using it yet. It's kind of like this is 1999 and no one's really using Google. There's a bit of a lag, uptake lag. But I think that
so
this is my big one. I think we're about to enter post-search society, especially now that GPTs have live web and you can go to the web live. It's like I almost don't even use Google now. I just use it to find a location or a map or a particular website, but I don't actually use it for anything that is knowledge-based, information-based, function-based. I don't work with it like I used to. This is gone.
mm,
And I mean, Google
one
obviously
of the
has
things,
Waymo and Maps and a whole other raft of important parts of their business, and they'll be fine. And I'm not too worried if they're not, even though I'm a shareholder. But I tell you what, this is the post-search society. This is, I seriously, I'm not mincing my words here. Traditional search is yellow pages. It's already happened. I'm telling you, that fucking dead.
no, I disagree. I think you're calling it way too soon. But, and I'll tell you why in a second. But before
I'm
we
not
get on to
saying that
that, one of
Google
the things
won't.
that,
I'm not saying that Google won't go and get their LLMs and transition it. And this is their challenge, is to
Hmm,
adapt. This is their challenge. And the reason I don't think that they will is because they have an entire infrastructure based on the revenue streams, which is pay per click and ads. And I think the future is subscription. And thank God for that, because it might just save the internet. Because the last thing you want is ads because it changes what you see. I think subscription is much better. I think they're fucked. I think their search is dead. Absolutely fucked, dead in the water. I'm calling it now. I'm fucking calling it hard.
so one of the things that OpenAI launched during the 12 days of OpenAI was the general availability of search inside of ChatGPT for free users, as well as previously it was available for plus users. So they're going hard on that. But again, the thing we have to remember is that Google has a massive ecosystem. They're a bit like Apple. They've
Yeah,
got a massive
yeah.
device install base running Android that where their LLM, Claude or whatever it is, will be not Claude, that's Anthropic.
Gemini.
Um, Gemini will be the default on all of those devices. Depending on what happens with their um, monopoly lawsuit, they may be able to block ChatGPT's ability to be featured heavily on those devices. But they've got a very strong tool, and they're coming back really hard with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
Gemini, they just launched a new version of Gemini in the last week that's doing really well in the benchmarks. Their latest video, text to video tool looks like it's way better than Sora, which OpenAI also publicly launched in the last week or so. But Google's tool, I think it's called VO, is not publicly available yet. I don't know, man. I think, because of their install base, their device base, and, you've got Chromebooks and all that kind of stuff, and the Gmail user base and all that kind of stuff
Say
that
Google
they've
was
got.
dead. I said search, as we know it, has got fucking terminal cancer.
Well, it's no, but
And that's
search is
really
just going to
important.
evolve into
No, it
search
won't.
is just
It won't. It won't.
evolving into
I'll tell
AI
you what,
search,
right.
though.
I'll tell you why, right?
AI
And it
driven
never does.
search.
It won't, and it never does. And I'm going to tell you why, because this happens fucking again and again and again. Is that companies always love their business model more than they love the technology in
Yeah,
there.
it's Christian
And the business
Clayton's innovator's dilemma. I agree with you.
100%.
That's
They're still
tricky.
fucking
I agree with
happy.
you. But
They are gone on that area. They'll still be
but
a big, and by the way, Kodak and everyone that you've seen that's been disrupted had all the technology, had the footprint. Everyone said Kodak won't die. They've got a footprint of 40
but
trillion.
Google's a fundamentally different business. It's a technology business that has been at the forefront. We like OpenAI came out of Google.
I know that.
LLMs came out of Google, and Google
Here's the
has
difference.
Demis
I'll
Hassabis,
tell you the
who's no
difference.
fucking
Okay,
clown.
I get it, but the difference has got nothing to do with
They
technology.
take it, no, it's about culture, but they
No,
take
it's
it
about
really
business model. It's
seriously
not
at
about
Google.
culture. No, it's not even about culture. It is about
Well,
business models. The
but
business
it's the
model is
culture that
always what
protects
makes
the
that a company.
business model. But it's the culture of the company that protects. I mean, that's Clayton Christensen's whole thing about protecting the business model from era one till it's too late to transition to era two, and then you lose
It's
the
already happening
transition war,
because the
right?
business model is now, I think, shifting really quickly to subscription, right? And I don't think their infrastructure. By the way, did you know the most common job in Google? Do you know what it is? The most common job. You know the answer. Do you know what it is? Salesperson.
Right. It's
They've
like
got more
Telstra.
salespeople than anything else in their business. You think they're a technology company? They're out there knocking on
By the way,
everyone.
I love this podcast because it's the only podcast I do where we argue. All the other podcasts I do, we just agree on everything. I love
Oh,
this. You
fuck
and I can
you.
have an argument. I love it.
Fuck you, Cameron. You are so wrong. I will
Oh,
fucking
it's
put
great.
my worth on
I
this
love
shit.
it. I love
And
it that
they're
we have
fucking dead.
arguments. It's
They're
great.
fucking dead, mate.
Yeah.
Because everything you're raising will
Well, but
see.
you're saying Alphabet's not dead. Google's not dead. Just
Google, I'm
you're
saying
saying
search is dead.
search is dead.
Fucking dead. Now, here's where I
And by
reckon,
the way,
quickly, where I reckon they're gonna go gangbusters and fucking slay the world with Waymo. Waymo is crazy. In every city they're in now, they have 30% of rideshare already. They've already overtaken Lyft and they are eating into Uber so quickly, it's not even funny. Anyway, so they're my three. And I love that we disagree. And the beauty of it is, we're going to talk every week and just see how this thing rolls out. Now, Cameron, over to your top three from this year.
I've done no prep
I
because you
love that.
warned me
You don't
that
need
this
prep,
was the
mate. You,
thing we were
you
going
were
to do. Like,
born ready. Born
I
ready.
was born ready. Yeah, that's what I always say. But off the top of my head, I mean, it's been a huge year, and I've probably forgotten a bunch of things. But the things off the top of my head that I'm most excited or impressed about this year, first is going to be Claude 3.5 Sonnet and coding.
Okay.
Now, funnily
Claude
enough,
Code.
just in the last 24 hours, O1, OpenAI's new model, just beat Claude in the coding benchmarks. I haven't tested O1 recently for coding because Claude 3.5 has just done such a great job for me. But my ability to code stuff in the last couple of months using Claude 3.5 Sonnet has just been like a magical experience. Not perfect, but just insane. Like you were saying before, like when I wrote that news app a couple of weeks ago, I was going, "Hey, can you just like build me my own news aggregator?" Yeah, yeah, sure. Here it is. Boom. Like it's that has been an insane experience for me this year. The fact that you could just think of something and build it now, like it's crazy that we can do that. with a tool that cost me. I mean, I pay for the API, but and sometimes I run up quite a bill on it. But, it might cost me anywhere from 20 to $50 a month to use the API, depending on how
Quite a
heavily I'm
bill.
using it.
Isn't it
But
funny on what's quite a bill these days? Go out and hire
yeah,
a software developer in 1992 and mortgage your house to get a shitty piece of software.
yeah, or even hire one today. It's going to be the same thing. Like to have somebody building apps for me for 20 to $50 a month is crazy. My second one would be AI integration with apps. So the OpenAI just released a lot of this stuff in the last couple of weeks, part of the 12 days to further and further integration. Today in their live stream, they announced integration with Apple Notes, which I don't use anymore. I use Obsidian. By the way, if you don't use Obsidian and you're a big note taker, check it out. Obsidian is absolutely magical tool. One of the best pieces of software out there, in my opinion. But um, we're now at the era. I have AI integrated into my code app, the development environment that I use. I have it integrated in a couple of other different apps. So we're now in the beginning of the era where it's integrated into your apps. It can see what you're doing. You don't have to copy and paste it from your app into the AI and then paste the result back. It's just watching what you're doing. It's making suggestions as you go. It's coding alongside you. That is the beginning of the future where AI is just integrated into everything that you
It's
do
like
and all
electricity,
of your
just in the
tools.
walls,
Yeah.
just in the walls like electricity. That's where AI is going. And ambient computing and omnipresence is when a technology has really reached its threshold. When you don't have to go to it, it is just everywhere. That's when you know technology has changed things.
By the way, this has been one of my rants for the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you and I have talked about this, but let me ask you a question. Do you know how electricity works?
uh, I'm going to say no because I think my answer will be wrong even if I try it. So I'll just go with no. Can you tell me?
Well, I think most people don't know how it works. And it's one of those things like special relativity and the double slit experiment that I need to reread myself every few years to
Yeah.
remind myself because I forget.
Yeah.
I need to do a refresher course on it every now and again. But I think the way that you kind of get taught how electricity works in school is when at high school and high school science, right? Is you flick a switch and it opens the hose. This is a wire, and electrons get pushed down the wire to the filament in the light, and it heats up the filament, and light comes out. That's not true. That's not how electricity works at all. The electrons don't move. They
Don't
do
they
move a little bit.
like it's like a wave in the ocean, which a lot of people think a wave is actually the same chunk of water, you know, how a swell goes through the ocean, but the drops stay where they are. It's the energy that
More or
moves,
less.
and it moves the drops in that spot. So it's actually a hump.
Yeah.
And that
But
water, people don't realize that you're actually just riding energy. You're not even riding the same drops of water when you're riding a wave.
but what is energy?
Well, I don't fucking know. Physicists, so you better tell me.
I
I
had
mean, I
this.
sort of know, but
So
I've done the school stuff, but I kind of don't really know. So can you please tell me and the listeners?
Well, energy is just the ability to do work. It isn't anything. It's what the issue I always have with new agey types when we start having conversations. They go, "Well, everything is made of energy."
Oh, they
I go,
love that.
"Energy
That's
is
their
just the
favorite thing.
energy is just the ability to do work." So what are you fucking saying? It doesn't make any sense. You're just using random words. They don't mean anything.
Yeah.
That it's like from Princess Bride. I do not think that word means what you think it means. Um, but I had this conversation with ChatGPT the other day where I was going down this thing about electricity and how it works. And it said, well, what happens is the electromagnetic field, which is everywhere and it permeates everything that's around the wire, carries the energy. The field carries the energy down to the filament. And we go, but what's the field? What is the field? And then it started going, well, think about waves on the water. I go, no, don't give me fucking analogies. I'm asking you a question. What is the field made of? And they go, well, think of this analogy. I go, don't fucking give me an. And I went on with this for an hour. I'm having a voice conversation with it when I was
By the way,
cleaning
you
the
told me
kitchen,
you
right?
don't swear at AIs in a previous post. You said you're nice to AIs, and I'm
I
starting to sense that now that they're part of everyday life,
I wasn't
you're
swearing.
starting to,
I'm exaggerating. I was being
okay,
very polite.
just want to point that
And
out.
I'm like, and I was like, what is in it? What is the field? And it was fudging. So after about an hour of ChatGPT, I gave up and I went to Gemini because the new Gemini had just come out. And I said, what is the electromagnetic field made out of? Fundamentally, what is it? And it said, nobody knows. Science doesn't know. It's one of the great mysteries of science. We know it exists. We know how to use it, but we don't know what it is. We just take advantage of it. We don't know. I went back to GPT and I said, Gemini just told me we don't know what it is. And GPT said, oh, well, that's true. Yeah. And I said, well, why didn't you just fucking tell me that an hour ago instead of giving me the same bullshit analogies over and over again? Just say, hey, listen, we don't know what it's about. He goes, oh, you're right. I should have said that.
This is a
So,
key, this is a key career, business, and technology insight for everyone. You don't need to know how something works to make it work for you.
yeah, it's like quantum mechanics. We still don't know really what's going on with quantum mechanics. We know how to use it. We do lots of stuff with it. No one knows
And
how it works
it's nice to know
or
how
why it
something
works the
works.
way it works.
It is nice to know
But
how something works. It is nicer to get it working for you.
here's my analogy though with AI. We don't know how AI works. No one knows how AI works still, right? But we're learning to know how to use it. And it will be like electricity, as you say. No one will know how it works. We'll just do stuff with it. So but AI integration with that. My third would probably be Apple Vision Pro, even though it's had a
Boo, boo,
minor.
boo,
If, have you had the demo yet? Have you
boo. Yes.
gone?
Yeah, the demo. I'm like, how is this changing anything for me?
Oh my God,
I went there and did it. And I actually meant to
you're
talk to you
so
about that.
dead spiritually. You are so
I'm
dead
not spiritually
inside,
dead. I'm like,
Steve.
yeah, I get it. It's nice and you can do all these things. And I get that it has a lot of applications, right? I get it. I get that it has a lot of entertainment and industrial applications, and it's incredible and it's good. But it's just a bit of a so what for me. I don't
Really?
see how I'm going to
Wow.
plug into that and fundamentally change my life for the better.
Wow. Okay. Well, they're my
Tell
top
me why you
three
love it though.
things from
Look, I
2020.
just want to keep to make sure this is not the Mutual Agreement Society podcast because no one. So I did lean into it a bit. I gave a bit of Cheryl. It was a bit of a Cheryl, and I leaned in to the disagreement. Now, come on, tell us what you love. This.
Well, I think in terms of, I said this at the time when I did my demo, like very few times in my life I can think of when I experienced a new piece of technology and it blew my mind. And I went, this is a fundamental quantum leap on anything I've experienced before. And it's completely reshaped the way that I think about the future and what can be done with technology. For me, that was Apple Vision Pro. I had fairly low expectations going into it. And the demo experience, I was like, oh, holy shit. Like, this just completely opens up new realms of what interacting with technology can be like. Just the three dimensionality of my experience of the internet and photos and videos and I can just imagine like, it's really just going into the Ready Player One sort of
Oh, look,
space, the beginnings of that, you know?
and maybe it is 5 years from now. I mean, just keeping exponentials in mind. Not a huge amount of years, mate. If this could transition into some kind of physical virtual reality holodeck style, next gen Star Trek. I mean, for me, that's astounding. But look, I definitely see the applications, and I think VR loosely and AR have had these applications, training and pilots and surgeons and uh, entertainment experiences, being at a concert you're not really at on the stage with Dave Grohl, all of that kind of cool stuff that could emerge from it. I think it's still there, but it feels like it's a great piece of kit that hasn't really got a home yet.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's very, very early adoptery mode, but I still think an amazing piece of technology,
Okay.
like
So
incredible achievement.
we're going to go
What's
through our
next? Top five
top five.
predictions?
We're going to go with our top
I've
five
only got one.
predictions. Hey, you've only got
I've
one.
only
That's
got
fine.
one.
I'm going to go through my five, and rather than explain
And I'm
each,
sure mine's going to be one of your five. So this is going to
well,
be easy.
interesting because I've got 20 from my podcast, which everyone should do, not my podcast, my post on Substack, which everyone should certainly be signed up to and go and read. Tech and AI trends for 2025. And I picked out the five that I think are the most interesting to me. There's a lot that have overlaps. Okay, I'll read them out and then we'll just pick which ones you want to speak about. The first one is agentic AI, AI agents. That's the top of my list and it's
You
not
got it.
close. There you
You
go.
got
Well
my
done.
you got my
Hey!
only one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Agents.
And it's kind of the top tier one. The next one I had on my list was
Well,
machine-based
wait,
business.
don't move on yet. I
No,
mean,
no,
are
we're
we
going
going
to
to
come
talk
back.
about agents?
We're going
Oh,
to come
okay.
back. Okay, so one was agent AIs or agentic AI. Number two was machine-based customers. I think this is going to be huge. And that's when it's kind of an agent process, but it's your purchaser, the person that goes and buys things, looks at things, does the research, negotiates all of that, everything from a car to whatever, goes through your
Yeah.
subscriptions, does all of that kind of
Just
stuff.
agents. That's just a
Yes, but I
subcategory of
think it
agents.
has a specific business implication because I think that businesses are going to have to get good at talking to and with AIs, and we're going to have to get good at prompting them on that realm within that specificity. The next one I had was the
Right.
AI creative explosion, a Cambrian explosion of capability based on the fact now that if you can think of it, you can do it. If you can imagine it, you can do it. I don't even know where that's going to go, but the fact that anyone can do everything that has ever been done is insane because I think a lot of people have ideas and have never had the capability. And I think that's extraordinary. My fourth one was the global robotaxi ramp up. 10 years late, but it's finally here. And I think that's going to go global next year. The cities in the US that are
Next
doing it.
year, really?
Yeah, I really do.
Mm.
I think they're keeping that in their back pocket. And I think if Google or Alphabet are smart, this is something that they can do without any antitrust issues. They can plug it in and then build out different business models based on logistics and moving people and payloads in a way that keeps some of their traditional business models of pay per click and advertising true within that logistical context. I think that's going to be huge. And the other one is AI eyeballs, which is the idea of holding up the video in a live moment, it distilling, analyzing, and helping you. I did it with my PK Ripper BMX. I needed a new part on it the other day. I held it up and it said, "Hey, that looks like a nice BMX there. It looks like a bit of a retro one. Is that a PK Ripper?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is." He's like, "Cool. How can I help you with it?" "Well, my cranks are broken." "Yeah, I can see those. They're the Redline Fly tool. They're not cutlass cranks, so they do break down a bit easy." And it went through and I said, "What part do I need?" Because one fell out. One was right. He said, "What you need is this here." And then I asked it. I found a place that sells it locally that can ship it that day. Gave me a link. It was like insanely simple example. But this is kind of like what the promise of Google Glass was. But now OpenAI, you have live video chat. It can understand exactly what it's seeing, converse with you, solve real time problems with AI eyes. That's huge. They're my five, brother.
Well, that's yeah. I don't know about robo taxis, but Elon running the White House might be interesting how he pushes that along from a Tesla perspective.
Well, yeah, could
Look, I
be.
think there are some predictions of AGI as early as 2025. I'm not sure about that, but I think Sam Altman has been saying lately that we will get AGI and it'll be kind of a ho hum moment. And I tend to agree because people are ho hum about AI already, which boggles my mind. I
Except for
still
us.
talk to,
Except for us, because I'm just every day. I'm just
yeah.
believe this.
I was saying to Chrissy last night, when we're talking about the Jetson, and I was like, it's 167 million times as powerful as the computer I had 30 years ago for a tenth of the price. Like, it's just my brain can't even begin to
Incomprehensible.
compute where we're at. You can call an AI over a rotary phone and have a conversation with it about any topic. Like it's just anyway. Um, yeah, I think he's right that AGI will, when I say slowly creep up on us, I mean slowly, but in the sort of timeframes that we're looking at. AI is just getting better and better and better. And at some point in the next year or two, it's just going to be better at any human at every topic. And people will just go, yeah, so what?
Kind of
People will
nearly
just be
is now.
blasé about it.
Kind of nearly is
Yes,
now.
nearly is now.
Well,
People will
it is
just be blasé about
intellectually.
it.
Intellectually, it is. Physically, it's not. On this TikTok that I was watching last night, I should have saved it. Anyway, it'll be in my history. This guy was saying that the thing that's interesting so far with AI and robotics is that robots find hard the things that humans find easy, like standing still and walking upstairs. And if we go back to the Atlas robots and Boston Dynamics and all of that kind of stuff, but computers and AI find easy the things that humans find hard, computation, complexity, all that kind of stuff. I thought that was kind of an interesting insight. And maybe
Mm.
that's why we're blasé about AI, because computers for a long time, in a computational sense, have far exceeded humans, whether it's a calculator or anything. And so it's just kind of, yeah, they've always been better than us. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know if, oh, I can talk now, whatever. I mean, for me, it's really interesting because it's language based, and that's the fabric of all human knowledge.
Speaking of which, there was an interesting paper that I saw this morning from Meta. Don't know if you've seen this, where the suggestion is that we should write the LLMs in a way where they don't use language, don't use English to think. So the way that, like, if we have chain of thought
Right.
reasoning with an LLM at the moment, like an O1, it uses English language, human language, to think through the process. And they're saying that uses tokens and it's slow. It would be
Inefficient.
faster just to let it do it in its own way in code and then push out the answer in language. It shouldn't have to think it through. And
Though,
that would reduce the level of compute and the level of wattage that was required and all that kind of stuff.
this is really interesting, and that's where, uh, like our favorite linguist, the guy who did Esperanto, what's his name again? He's one of your boys, the linguist, Chomsky.
He didn't do Esperanto. That
Did
was a
he, did
different
he
guy,
do
but yeah.
Esperanto? He was a linguist, wasn't he? Chomsky?
Chomsky is, yeah, he's one of the, major linguists, yeah, in terms
Oh,
of
I
understanding
thought he did
language, yeah.
Esperanto. Who did Esperanto? Do you remember? Wasn't Chomsky.
No, I can't remember his
It
name.
was Billy
Different
Espo.
guy.
It was Billy Espo, and he put Runto on the end of it. Anyway, so Billy Espo, the thing with language that is interesting is that it has nuance in it, which I think enables all of the things that we would do creatively be possible. I think in the computation sense, it definitely would waste tokens, but I think at the output level, it probably has to do it in that language. And as someone who speaks three languages, how's that for a flex? There is something in languages that makes it impossible to transliterate exactly. It just can't be done. And the only way you can truly understand a language is to kind of understand the culture and the way of life and even be in that country, because then the words start to make sense because of the physical interactions and they become a function of that. And some things you just can't translate. And when you understand both languages really well, you can explain it to somebody, say, look, we say this word, but it really doesn't mean that. And that's the only one that we've got to kind of translate, but it's kind of like this. And you have to go into that. And I think that if the LLMs were doing it in computation, their capacity to give us the optionality of all the things that they can do would be lost in that translation process.
Esperanto was invented by L. Zamenhof, Ludwig Laser Zamenhof, a Polish-Jewish ophthalmologist in the late 19th century. He published the first book outlining the language, titled Unua Libro, First Book, in 1887 under the pseudonym Doctoro Esperanto, which means Doctor Hopeful. The pseudonym eventually became the name of the language itself. Zamenhof's goal was to create an easy-to-learn, politically neutral, and culturally inclusive auxiliary language that could foster international communication and understanding. Esperanto's grammar is highly regular. Its vocabulary is derived mainly from European languages, and it was designed to be phonetic and logical. Despite being a constructed language, Esperanto has developed its own thriving global community of speakers.
There you
I'm
go.
going to learn Esperanto late at night tonight after a couple of Camparis at 1 a.m.
I like that idea. Maybe we should do our next podcast in Esperanto. Both learn it.
Esperanto. Well, Cameron, given that you've got one, do you want to give us your thoughts on agents and why they matter? And I'm getting the sense,
Yeah.
and I kind of, when I look through mine, it kind of is a capstone thing that really trickles through all of the others to an extent. So why don't we kind of get your view on agents, what they are and why they really matter? And that might even be a nice way for us to kind of round out the pod. Because we
Yeah.
have to do one before the new year as well, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, so look, this isn't an original prediction. Pretty much everyone in the space is saying 2025 is going to be the year of agents. And the way that most of them describe agents, it's when you can give your AI a complicated task and made up of a number of subtasks that have to be done, some of which might take a bit of time and effort, and they will just go off and do those things and come back to you when it's done. Now, trying to come up with examples of this is tricky. Like the one I heard Sam Altman use the other day was pretty mundane. He was like, well, you could ask it to find a restaurant to make you a booking, and it might go off and ring 3 restaurants and find out what their availability is and then come back to you and when it's got a booking and check your friends' calendars and do all that kind of stuff and interface with all these different things and come back to you with a result. And he said, that's interesting, but not that exciting. He said, but what if you got it to go and speak to 100 restaurants and find out what all of their offerings were and, if they catered to what pricing they could do and if they could cater for a particular, I don't know, vegans or whatever it is. And then he said, well, you might think that's a lot of wasting people's time, but it would probably be your AI talking with the AIs of all of those restaurants and having a negotiation and a conversation and then coming back to you. And, it reminds me of talks I was giving at Microsoft circa 2000. 25 years ago, something like that, when I was talking about Web 2.0, and it was the early days of Web 2.0, and the vision that we had for how that would play out back then was that if I wanted to build a TV, if I wanted to buy a TV, I would say to my browser, I need a TV, and it would go off and not just find the best price from a bunch of TV retailers for me, but it would talk to the retailers, and the retailers would use their own back-end systems to do a just-in-time build of that TV and would go out and speak to all of their suppliers and negotiate the best pricing that they could get for all of the components, and it would be built on the fly, and I would get the best price based on the best negotiation that the best retailers and manufacturers could get with all of their suppliers, come back and give me the best price. Not dissimilar to how Tesla, in a way, will custom build a car for you these days. One of the problems that we had, this was all part of the idea that there would be interoperability between all of the back-end manufacturing systems, and they'd be able to have schemas that could talk to each other, and XML was going to be the basis of that, or .NET as Microsoft called their platform back then. And what happened was the technical logistics and the management logistics required to get all of those schemas to interoperate and interface with each other was way bigger project than anyone really wanted to do, just to reduce their margins by having more competition. And it kind of all fell apart. It didn't quite get there. But I see we're heading into a world where every system, and I remember you and I talking about this at the beginning of this series, like a year or two ago, about agents that sit on the front of every business's website that can speak with their back end manufacturing systems. And ultimately, I think we are heading into a world where my agent will go out and be able to speak to the agents of all of the retailers and all of the manufacturers and negotiate on my behalf. You were talking about, what did you call it? Machine based shoppers or something
Yeah, yeah,
before?
machine-based customers.
So agents is basically really complicated processes that your AI will be able to do on your behalf. And I think Sam's point was, we tend to think of it in terms of things that we already do today that it might make easier. But he's saying there are things that we haven't even thought of because they're not practical or possible today that we will be able to do in the future when everyone has intelligent software that can talk to other pieces of intelligent software. And often, in some cases, it'll be the same software. It'll be my version of ChatGPT talking to your version of ChatGPT, talking to another ChatGPT. It'll just be ChatGPT or whatever it is talking to itself, because it'll be front ending a lot of these systems. But that's the world of agents. Complicated scenarios done completely by software, and it'll happen slowly. I don't think it'll happen all at once. It'll start with small iterations,
Yeah.
but will gradually become more and more sophisticated over the next year or two. But definitely, I think 2025 is when we're going to start to see the beginnings of software. Really, this is where software as a service becomes real. These things
Well,
will do services for
the
you.
the current software as a service gets eaten up by an
Yeah,
overriding agent style thing, and the
yeah,
agent is multimodal because it's not like software as a service now is set in little verticals with functional tasks. But because it's
yeah.
language based, and this is why language
The
based
Louis.
software LLM is so important, is that it's multimodal. It can do any
Yeah.
task with any set of directions, and it eats up every little piece of software as a service app that there is. And just on that, it's interesting how technology has a way of building another layer to circumvent the problems. And the problem with the back end speaking to each other is that companies have proprietary systems, don't want to open them up, they want to keep them closed on purpose because they have an incentive. And then technology sits above it. So, okay, you've got your two different back end logistics or supply chain systems. Well, cool. Now we've got the agent that just speaks English or Hindi or Spanish or Mandarin or both. Actually, it
Or
speaks all of them.
Esperanto.
Sorry. Mainly Esperanto. Look, supply chains in Esperanto has always been what I've hoped for. So it can speak in all of those supply chain levels. So it doesn't matter that it's not all in .NET or some system in the back end that has this ability for software to kind of interact, because you get the language layer on top. And that brings me back to what that paradox that I was trying to think of before. It's Jevons paradox. And
Who?
Jevons paradox, Jevon. And it was coined by William Stanley Jevons in 1865. And it refers to the idea that as technology improves, the efficiency of resource use, the overall consumption of that resource often increases instead of decreasing. For example, more efficient fuel engines lead to greater fuel consumption as travel becomes cheaper and more accessible. It's the same kind of with AI. It's the AI becomes better and more useful. And I think it kind of leads into unexpected use cases as well, because it becomes more omnipresent. It goes on further and it says, in a broader sense, this could also be linked to the idea of emergent utility. As we refine or cleave off parts of a material resource or concept, we discover new ways to use or repurpose what remains. And so it kind of feels into this, and it says this reflects on the recursive nature of innovation. And while refining or breaking down something often leads to greater complexity rather than simplicity and reduction. So it kind of ads. And for me, Jevons paradox relates to the idea that we don't need a UBI because there's all of these unexpected things that just layer out. So I just thought that that was interesting. And a guy was talking about it on my TikTok last night at 2
Yeah. Well,
at
look.
2 a.m.
Oh man, I didn't get any sleep last night. Fox was in our room sick at 3:30 a.m. and throwing
Fox, what are
up
you
all night.
doing?
So then I had to record a podcast at 9 a.m. So I just got up. I had to make bread. Yeah, me too. So, yeah, look, I think we can't even begin to imagine the ways that we're going to use this stuff in the next year or so, Steve. And just to wrap up, I had one last thing I wanted to say to you.
Dankon, Steve. Tio estis tre amusa. Ni fargin denove venontsemajne.
Can I guess?
Mhm.
Something, how you going? Have a happy new year or something in Esperanto. It was definitely in Esperanto. I know that much.
It was, thanks, Steve. That was great fun. Let's do it again next week in Esperanto. Thanks, buddy. Have a good
Thanks,
week.
champion. Great chat.